All right, here's a question for you. How do you get out of jury duty? This topic just basically fell into my lap a few moments ago. A coworker here is having issues with jury duty. They called him in this morning, and then you let him go. They said, no, the judge has some issues. You got to come back tomorrow, though. What the hell? I mean, come on. So if you have a good story about getting out of jury duty, help me in helping out my coworker here at 663-1270, 663-1270. You got to do your duty. You got to do your jury. Good citizenship. Oh, come on. Nobody likes jury duty. You must have a good story here somewhere. Tell me about it. 663-1270. Jim Walsh, that would be me here at SuperTalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Got a lot of things to talk about. Two subjects in particular that are very much in the news. One of them very much locally in the news. The subject of bullying. A group of concerned parents and some other folks showed up at the school board meeting last night in Bismarck to call for a reform, change, if you will, in the way the school system is handling bullying. Now, this is obviously not a new topic, and I'm inclined to think that a lot of it is just a case of bureaucrats and politicians. Again, there's a lot of grandstanding involved, and they make a big deal solving problems, a lot of which will eventually solve themselves. Are you with me on that? We'll talk about it here. If you were bullied in school, or if you have a children with a legitimate bullying issue, tell me about that. I would very much like to hear your story. And again, the number is 663-1270. And sexual harassment or harassment. The Harvey Weinstein story. This big-time movie mogul who was caught with his guard down. This happened a few days ago. Sex scandals. People are comparing him to Bill Cosby. I would not go that far. Sexual harassment is one thing. Lowering sexual power over somebody for your own personal gain. That's bad enough. Rape is a whole different kettle of fish, though. I would not put him in the same category with Cosby. Neither of them is necessarily somebody that I would want to hang out with, but there is a difference. But let's also open that to your input. And I admit, this is something that is very hard for a lot of people to talk about. But if you have a sexual harassment story, and if you're willing to come forward, it takes a lot of courage to do that, But if you're willing to come forward and talk about your own experiences, please do so. So we got bullying, sexual harassment, avoiding jury duty. I suppose they all kind of tie in with each other one way or the other. But in the case of any of those, maybe you actually have a story where it was all three. Somebody tried to bully you into jury duty and they sexually. I don't know. But your comments are welcome here. This should be interesting. Number here is 663-1270. I put these up front because we're going to talk about all these issues today and others. The big anti-bullying campaign. Well, it's been a big campaign for a number of years, but it never seems to go anywhere. I think largely the problem is the students and the adults kind of talk past one another. They have different definitions of what constitutes bullying. And a lot of it, again, is a case of government or bureaucracy stepping in to solve a problem that's not really that much of a problem. Yeah, bullying is a bad thing. Real, genuine bullying where you are physically threatened. That is obviously not a pretty thing. But how often does it really happen in our society, even among kids? Probably more so among kids, but a lot of the definitions here really, and everything that can happen to your kid is not bullying. You know what I mean? Rumors and gossip, they are what they are, but they're not really bullying. regardless of whether or not it happens online or on social media. And girls, as a rule, who are fighting over boys, fighting each other, or ostracizing each other because of boys, is that bullying? Not really, but some people like to say it is. Fight videos, bullying? Well, here's the thing with fight videos. It takes two to tango, right? So how is a fight video, if you have two kids actively engaging in a fight and somebody rolls a video of it, how is that bullying if the two kids are fighting each other? Maybe if it's one kid beating up on the other. Big problem with this whole bullying thing is a lot of it, frankly, is mutual. Yeah, a lot of times you have one person, a kid or an adult, and they think, well, they're not at fault. They're a victim. You see a lot of that in the society, let's face it. And every bully in politics, of course, likes to play the victim card. We've seen a lot of that over the last year or so, haven't we? But let's not go there. Let's keep it relevant here. Let's talk about your own personal situation with your own kids or even yourself. There's a lot of intimidation that goes on in the American office, in the business world. But is that really bullying? Bullying to me implies a physical threat. And the line is not as fine as some people, I think, would like to make it. A lot of times, and this happens with kids and adults, you have the one person that says they are not at fault. They are a victim. But those who are engaged in the bullying may see it differently. They may blame the person and see what they're doing as retaliation, none of which is communicated, of course. And things can spiral out of control very quickly, and in the end, nobody really knows where it all got started. So you say, well, it's bullying. We got to stop it. Have you noticed they really haven't come up with any tangible solutions to this problem? Everybody likes to say bullying is bad. Obviously, it is. The real thing, it's an ugly thing, whether it's a kid or an adult. But nobody has really come up with a way to fix this problem. I don't think there is. Americans like to think that they can come up with a solution for everything. And that is a good thing that's good in a lot of ways. We're going to go to the moon. You're crazy, but we figured out a way to do it. We're going to do this. Americans have done a lot of extraordinary things. We're going to cure cancer. Well, sounds kind of nutty if you've never done it, but along the way, in many cases, people have managed to do just that by research and developments in the field of medicine. Americans like to think there is no problem in the world that they can't solve. And then you have something like this, or you have something like, the classic example, of course, and it's not a bullying thing necessarily, but what happened in Las Vegas a week and a half ago. Maybe there is no solution to the problem. Maybe you're just dealing with human beings being human beings. And maybe that's kind of the situation with these other issues, sexual harassment. Guys are guys. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm an old school guy, but I've known all my life that there are certain things you don't do to women in public, in an office, in any situation. And bullying, I've never thought bullying was cool. I don't think I've ever bullied. Have I? Well, maybe when I was a little kid. Once or twice, but not very often. Mostly I was the recipient. But I grew out of it. I got over it. I dealt with it. And I'm here today to tell you that sometimes things have a way of resolving themselves. That's what I'm saying. So how do you deal with the bullying issue? You tell me. I don't have an answer. 663-1270. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270. More conversation, your calls coming up. My main man there, Steve Bryant. You might remember him. He was one of the great voices of QVC many, many moons ago. He's a master at that TV pitchman thing, and he's also a musician. He's written some very cool songs there. And I thank Steve for that contribution here. All right, Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. So what is the solution for bullying in the schools? A group of parents came out last night, and they said there's got to be some radical changes in the way we deal with bullying in our school systems. Well, how do we deal with bullying in the school systems? Seems to me a better answer is how do you deal with it on an individual level with your own kids? Doesn't look to me like the school is going to accomplish anything. For all this talk about dealing with bullying over the last 15, 20 years, has anybody ever come out with a workable, tangible solution to the problem that can be applied on a government level or a school board level, school policy? From what I've seen, there has never been one single productive idea that has come out of the whole school bullying issue. Nothing. Everybody says, oh, we got to deal with it. You know, maybe we should stop trying to deal with it. And first of all, acknowledge that bullying is going to happen, especially the middle school level. A lot of students will tell you there's some of it in high school, but mostly you're talking about the younger kids, especially in late elementary school or even early elementary school, but most commonly in that swamp of social Darwinism we like to call middle school. What a horrible time to be a kid. How do you deal with it on your level? Number 663-1270. If your kid gets bullied, if your kid gets in trouble, 663-1270. God, middle school was so horrible, but I think we need to acknowledge that it's going to happen. Some kids are going to be stronger than the others, and during that period of their life when they're trying to find their way, a lot of kids are going to exert power, going to try to exert power over other kids because they're trying to figure out how things work. That doesn't mean they're helpless victims. That doesn't mean the bullies are necessarily helpless victims themselves. It means that kids will do what kids do. There's a reason why we don't allow children under a certain age to do things like drink or possess firearms or do whatever. We don't let them drive until they're 16 or 17. We don't let them carry a firearm, even in North Dakota, until they're 18. And a big part of the reason is when you're a kid, you're still sorting a lot of things out, which is exactly why, as long as human beings are human beings, there will always be bullying. That's the first thing you have to acknowledge. It's something that's always, like Lincoln said about the poor, it's something that's always going to be with us. You're not going to get rid of bullying. You're not going to wipe out bullying in the schools. It's just plain not going to happen. For all the talk about it in the last 20 years, show me one instance where a school board or a politician has ever come up with a tangible, workable idea to eliminate bullying and to stop it. It doesn't exist. Such solutions, they're not out there. For all the talk about it, nobody's ever come up with a plan. A big part of the problem is a lot of it, frankly, is political grandstanding. A lot of politicians, well, you know, it's hard to talk about political grandstanding without tying in the current thing about the national anthem. By the way, Kevin Kramer, if you're listening, Kevin, shut up. Kevin Kramer gets his digs in on the NFL players taking a knee. Of course, you're a little behind the curve, Kevin. I mean, that was a big issue 2 weeks ago. Most of us have moved on to other things, but And North Dakota Congressman Kevin Cramer adding his voice to the NFL protest debate, speaking out against players protesting. Yes, how dare they? How dare they acknowledge that people are being mistreated by the police in this country? Them up in the niggers, they probably had it coming. You know that's what they're thinking. Or that's what they want you to think. You just know that. Yeah. Dare I use the R word? Uh-huh. Now, I don't know if Kevin Cramer is a bigot, but he certainly likes pandering to him, doesn't he? Yeah. But back to the issue at hand here. Anti-bullying. A lot of it is just growing out of it. A lot of it is just becoming an adult and finding your way in life and realizing on your own that that's not necessarily the way you get along in life. A lot of people never learn that lesson. And if you're an adult and you still push people around like you did in middle school, you are pathetic. All right? Why don't you sit down and try to learn a little bit about how the world works? You got to be careful. I'm already in enough trouble for using words on this program, but you know what I'm trying to say here. Number is 663-1270. Anti-bullying campaigns. They really accomplish nothing, so what do you do with your family to deal with the issue? Maybe get your kid boxing lessons. I think a big part of it is teaching your kid how to stand up for himself or herself. Since girls have always done their share of bullying, let's not kid ourselves. Little girls are not these vessels of pure virtue that some people still in this day and age like to think they are. They're not. But I think a big part of the problem is teaching your own child to stand up for himself, not in the sense of being a bully and beating other people up, but just to be confident, to carry himself like somebody who knows what they're about. Confidence. Some kids are bully magnets. Thing you do with a kid like that is you got to get them to be more confident. Now, how you do that, that's a good question. But I really think that's a big part of the solution right there. So what about yourself? Your own family. Has it happened, and how do you deal with it? Number here is 663-1270. Your comments welcome. Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270. I hope I don't have to bully you into calling today. Hey, man, you could have beat you up, man. But do call. I'd love to hear from you. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270. More conversation. Your calls coming up.
Right now, 43.
News and Views with Joel Heitkamp. Weekdays on SuperTalk 1270.
Talking about the bullying issue, it's back again in the news locally. A school board meeting last night. A group of concerned parents, quote unquote, showed up and demanded some radical changes in the way the school board handles the bullying issue. But, you know, for all the talk on this issue over the last 20 years or so, has there ever been a really workable, tangible plan to come out of it? For all the talk about, we got to fix bullying, we got to stop the bullying. Has anybody on that level ever actually come up with an idea that works? Not really. I think part of the problem is in, number one, admitting that it's something that's always going to be with us as long as human beings are human beings. People, especially kids, when they're growing up and trying to figure things out in life, kids are going to bully. It's going to happen. Once in a while, it's going to get out of hand. I'm sorry. But, you know, you can't wave a magic wand and make all the problems in the world go away, as much as Americans like to think they can do that. We've done a lot of amazing things in this country, but we're talking about a thing that's part of human nature. Kids at a certain age are gonna bully. So how do you, on your individual level, with your own family, how do you deal with a topic like this? You tell me. Number 663-1270. Love to hear from you on this. Jim Walsh here at SuperTalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Story here about some parents in a New York town who could face jail and fines under a new anti-bullying law. Now, this is not the first time we've heard about this, but this is the most recent story. Just came out in the last day or so. And, of course, they had a woman here who apparently their child was an extreme. The child got punched in the face really hard. Okay, it was a brazen act of violence and happened in front of a parent. You know, some kids are just screwed up. They just need to be taken out of the system. You know what I mean? Some kids are just bad eggs. Some people are just born broken. And they just need to be taken away for the protection of society. But anyway, this woman, and the mistake there, I think, is in assuming that there's a lot more of that out there than there really is. A lot of what you call bullying is just kids kind of jiving with each other, you know, playing the dozens. And, yeah, your mom is so fat. Yeah, well, your mom is so fat. Is that really bullying? Come on. And the two kids walk away and everything's cool. That's not bullying. The definition thing is a big part of the problem, and unfortunately, we tend to base this stuff on the worst-case scenarios. Well, hard cases make for bad law, and this is exactly why. You get a woman whose child was a victim of an extreme example of it, and your heart goes out to her, but you don't necessarily want to change the whole law based on her experience. See what I'm saying? All right. Anyway, the deal is in this town in New York. What's the name of the town? Where's this? Some Craig. Is it Craig? No, that's the woman's name. But North. Oh, it's one of those long Indian names. North Tonawanda. Cool. I like those cool Indian names. North Dakota has a bunch of them. You know, there's Tuckahoe or Tuckahoe, New York, is what I like to say. But no, North Tonawanda, New York. They're proposing a law where the parents could be fined $250 and sentenced to 15 days in jail. The parents would face the punishment if their child violates the city's curfew. Here we go with the curfew again. You don't really need a curfew, and if your kid is out 11 o'clock at night, your kid's 10 years old and is out past 11, well, what's going on with that? There's a problem there. But this thing of fining and even putting the parent in jail because the kid is caught bullying another kid, well, gee, what could possibly go wrong there? What could possibly go wrong with that? Next thing you have the kid bullying the parent. You better be nice to me. You better buy me that new Xbox, or I'm going to go beat up this kid and you're going to go to jail. Kids do that. Kids do stuff like that. So how do you deal with it? Well, I don't know. But the first thing you have to acknowledge is it's part of human nature when you're a child. And obviously most people outgrow it. Some never do. The Army in particular seems to be full of people who never actually outgrew their need to physically muscle around other people. It's unfortunate, but there's a lot of truth to that. My dad was a Navy man. Served in World War II, and even then he said, there's a lot of bullying that goes on in the government, in the military, not just the military, though, the government, any kind of bureaucracy. They just become more subtle about their bullying tactics. It becomes less about the physical threats of violence and more about threatening people with their jobs and that kind of thing. But yeah, some people never grow out of it. These people obviously should be taken out and shot. But for the rest of us, a big part of it is just not acknowledging that it's always going to be, as long as Homo sapien continues to be sapien, I guess. We'll leave the other part out of it for the moment. I don't want people to misunderstand. But as long as human beings are human beings, there is going to be bullying, especially among children. That is the first thing you have to acknowledge. You're not going to eliminate this problem. It's been with the human species ever since the days of the ape men dancing around the monolith. And you're not going to be the one to fix it. Sorry, but it's just the way it works. So the big question is, how do you deal with it on your own personal, individual, or family level? That is the question. The answer is up to you. And maybe you've got some good ideas. But let's forget about trying to stop bullying forever. It's not going to happen. Let's all focus on dealing with it with our own kids. And just remember, in the worst case scenarios, it's still something that most of us are going to grow out of. Let's keep things in perspective here. Number is 663-1270. 663-1270. I wonder if there's a connection. I'm not a psychologist. I don't even play one on television. Although I do a great doctor pose, I'm going to lean back like that. I look like Alan Alda in the surgical guard. But can't help but wonder if there's a connection psychologically between bullying and sexual harassment. Seems to me that people like that may be cut from the same cloth. Well, the Harvey Weinstein story, and by the way, screw Harvey Weinstein. Here's a guy who had one of the greatest, coolest jobs on the planet. Working the, as Joni Mitchell called it, the Star Maker machinery. One of the greatest jobs on the planet. I mean, if he wanted to get action, he could have gotten it the legitimate way. He probably could have had his pick of a lot of the most desirable women in Hollywood. He didn't have to turn into a butthead and basically threaten women or try to bribe them, or however you want to put it. Sexual harassment, he didn't have to do that. So the hell with him. I may be an old school guy, but real men are gentlemen. Real men don't pull that kind of crap. And no woman should have to put up with it. One good kneecap to the family jewels, I would think, would do a lot more good. And, a lot of the problem, and this is the problem with the bullying, too, a lot of us just like to look the other way, like to refuse to acknowledge when it is going on. Now, understand what I'm saying here. I'm not saying you ignore the problem here. What I am saying is that you keep it in perspective, all right? You don't ignore it, but you do keep in perspective the fact that if nothing else, the kid will probably, if you've done your job raising the kid right, the kid will probably grow out of it, bullying or being bullied. Probably. I know a lot of guys from my old, I'm one of these guys who hangs out with a lot of my old friends from school, and I was not a big fan of my school years. But it's funny, though, you run into people you knew from back then, and some of the worst offenders, some of the biggest bullies, some of the most serious buttheads, they grew up, they got their act together, they turned out to be decent people. I have a lot of good friends from my school days who we did nothing but fight when I was a kid. And they turned out to be sweethearts, wonderful guys, great people, cool people. Life has a way of working out a lot of this for you. That doesn't mean you have to ignore it when it happens. It just means you have to acknowledge that that's the way the world works. So I think all these anti-bullying campaigns, they really miss the point. And it goes back to the old thing that there was a time when if this was an issue in your family, you dealt with it on a family level. And you worked it out on a family level. You didn't go necessarily running to the school board, or if you did, it was out of last resort for an extreme situation. But you didn't automatically go running to your congressman or running to the school board to make all these big, drastic, radical changes just to accommodate your kid. The answer for you has to be on your own personal, individual level. So how do you deal with bullying or sexual harassment? And it takes a lot of courage to talk about that, I know. But I would encourage you very strongly to talk about it. It's a healthy thing. And it makes me look good. You call in 663-1270. Call. Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270. SuperTalk1270.com. More conversation. Your calls coming up.
Right now, it's 53.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on SuperTalk 1270.
30-year sentence for 7 grams of marijuana. How ridiculous is that? Talking about an 18-year-old who was picked up yesterday in the parking lot of South Central High. Some official walking by. What's an SRO anyway? Well, the SRO was walking by, and Basically, they saw a hash pipe in the kid's car. And they waited for the kid to come out, and they said, okay, kid, get out of the car. We're going to search the car. So they searched the car. They saw the hash pipe. It was in plain sight, but they found 7 grams of pot and some paraphernalia. Now, and the kid had a gun on him. But think about this. By the way, I love the fact that, of all the things he was charged with, the felony drug possession, having the gun itself was just a misdemeanor in this case. Oh, boy, could I go off on a tangent with that. Drugs, oh, my God. Oh, he's got a gun, too. Oh, slap him on the wrist. Right, okay. You got to love this society. Anyway, isn't this ridiculous? 30 years for 7 grams of pot? Come on. That's ridiculous. 663-1270, 663-1270. I just can't believe it here. 7 grams of pot. That's not very much. That's not very much at all. And what are you really punishing him for? Kids getting pot from them or smoking pot. Well, yeah, I got news for you. Kids are smoking pot. Chances are your kids are smoking pot. It's something that kids do. Is it really such a horrible thing that this kid had some pot in the car? And he had a gun. Well, what kind of gun did he have? I mean, that to me is significant. He had what, a 380? Now, those of you familiar with firearms will back me up on this. A 380, you could practically hide it in your hand. You can close your hand around it, nobody would see it. A 380 is barely enough, basically, to stop a large rodent in its tracks. If you shoot at a mouse, you might stop the mouse from attacking you. If you're concerned about being attacked by a mouse, I don't know, or a rat. Basically, this is a gun that's suitable for shooting rats. Not that big a deal. Hardly any stopping power at all. Although a gun like that can kill somebody because it is like the old thing about 22s. A 22 has great killing power because it creates a very septic wound. If it's not treated, it could kill you from an infection. But in terms of stopping power, it's kind of ridiculous. Better than nothing, I suppose. You go for the eye sockets, right? But really, it's not very impressive. So an 18-year-old kid, he has a little bit of pot in his car. He has 7 grams of pot in his car. He has some paraphernalia, and he has this little dinky-ass gun in his pocket. And they arrest him. They charge him with felony drug possession with intent to deliver and misdemeanor firearm possession. And they're saying that if convicted, he could serve up to 30 years. Do you really want to put this kid away for 30 years? The very fact that it's on the table, that it's an option, I think is a real joke, but it's not funny at all. You're going to ruin the life of some kid because he's got a little grass on him, 30 years. Of course, he probably won't get anywhere near 30 years. What they'll do is they'll hang it over his head and make him do a little song and dance in the courtroom there. He'll have to get up there and make some statement or maybe speak before some group about how terrible drugs are and all this crap. They'll have him jump through all the usual hoops, but why? Threatening a kid, the very fact that it's even an option is pretty damn stupid. God help him, he gets some judge who's got a bug up his about drugs and might throw the book at him and actually give him 30 years. Probably not, though. But it's just bad. To me, it's bad enough that it's just an option, that it's something that they could do if they wanted to. But they won't do it because they'll just, make him, tie a string to his head and, make him dance around a little bit with the old little anti-drug demonstration, little dog and pony show. Does anybody think this is really productive? No, it's not. Basically, it's teaching your kids to hate the police and hate authority figures, which they probably already do anyway, but why encourage it? I don't know. 663-1270. So this kid's getting a raw deal. That's what I'm saying. 663-1270. Got a story about Halloween. It's Halloween, and a lot of Halloween celebration going on, and that's great. You got the Haunted Fort Abraham Lincoln, which is a wonderful thing. We're a part of that again this year. You should definitely check that out. But got a story here about Halloween parades in Chester County, Pennsylvania, suburban Philadelphia. It's kind of like the western suburb of Philly. Kids will no longer get the chance to scramble for candy tossed from the floats at the Halloween parade. Now, this obviously was a local issue here in Bismarck last couple of years with the 4th of July parade. But it's come up again, this time in Pennsylvania. These kids are not going to be able to, basically they're not going to allow you to throw candy from the parade floats. According to the Daily Local News, the Parks and Rec Director, where's Juan Swanson when you need him, right? The director says they're fearful that one of about 25 parade floats might injure an unattended child or a marching band member, a rival, a youngster. Yeah, those marching bands, they're just so vicious. You see a majorette with a flag, run for your lives! Oh, my God! There's nothing they like better than to mistakenly, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, strike down a youngster in his prime. Yeah, it happens all the time, doesn't it? Yeah. Then the sousaphone starts playing really loud. You can't hear the screams. Oh, boy. Yeah, the American parade routes are littered with small candy-clutching collateral damage. Oh, boy. Anyway, this Parks and Rec person, looking here, in the past, participants in the annual Halloween parade threw candy goodies to children along the route. You know, when I saw B.B. King in concert here in Bismarck, the late, great B.B. King, he was doing that from the stage, throwing candy out to people. Yeah. Trying to incite a riot, I'm sure. Yeah. And how dare they take a knee for the end. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, this year, the borough, Chester County, will set up 4 distribution stations where the candy will be handed out. Now, the candy is still going to be distributed, Halloween, public safety reasons, and the safety of our children will be distributed differently. The kids will get their candy, but they're going to have... Is it possible the mayor got it bass-ackwards here? He thinks the goal is excess amounts of candy. But isn't the real goal here just for everybody to have a good time? And hey, scrambling for candy is fun. What's wrong with that? Really? Where's the problem here? And again, in Bismarck, every year they have this big discussion with the 4th of July parade. And a couple of years ago, the Town Square media people, we were part of that parade, and they got on our case because we were doing that and we weren't supposed to. I don't know. But anyway, so they're saying they're going to save all these children from being endangered by not letting people throw the candy. They won't have, listen, great quote here from the Parks and Rec guy, they won't have to struggle with other children who are trying to get the same thing. Isn't that kind of the point, doofus? Oh, look, here comes a parade. Oh, look, they're throwing candy. Oh, my God, the children are forming a... Oh, God, the humanity. Oh, no. There goes your small-town holiday parade down the old dumperoo. Give me my bite-sized Snickers and yours. It's social Darwinism, baby. Boy, nothing is safe enough today, not even a wholesome parade with mock rifles. Let them eat their candy. Leave them alone. Jeez, God. What next? Your comments welcome. SuperTalk1270.com. My name is Jim Walsh. You can follow the events of the day at SuperTalk1270.com. We enjoy your feedback very much. Thanks again for listening. Have a good one.